Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and as always I'm joined by my lovely and very talented co-hosts Ian Barnard, aka my fellow Brit and very talented hand letterer, our American retro design loving friend Dustin Lee, and the ever charming South African illustrator Lisa Glanz. This episode we're taking our first ever listener question from Connor, and Connor's been struggling with some anxiety issues around his work in terms of comparing himself to others and just generally not feeling confident enough to really enjoy what he's producing. So we dig deep for Connor, and although this episode is specific to his situation, I think it's very relatable and there's a lot of tips and golden nuggets in there for everyone listening at home. Let's get into the show. So this week we've got an extra special episode because we have our first full episode dedicated to a listener question. And I'm going to let Ian take over here because this email actually went to him directly. So Ian, take it away.
Okay. So this letter's from Connor. Thanks, Connor, for emailing it in. You can get him at Colligo Graphics on social media. So his letter goes, during my whole life, I basically got told not to do art, as it was a waste of time. It wasn't beneficial, so do something more academic that will guarantee you more money. So I didn't do art during high school, all the way to the end of sixth form. However, at home, I'd be drawing portraits of people and trying to sell them, drawing comics, photo manipulation of people, and creating logos, all self-taught. So I've never been fully confident in my abilities and sometimes scared to show it, even though I love design. At the end of sixth form, I realised how much I loved graphics. I'd fallen in love with it. When I went to university to study graphic design, it was a massive eye-opener. I had a module dedicated to drawing, where it was literally pencil and paper. Most lectures, it would consist of, right, design, you've got 10 minutes to draw. I used to panic because I'd never been taught the fundamentals of drawing and what's the right way of doing it. So I'd sit there and shake, and ever since then, whenever I'm about to draw, I panic and self-doubt overcomes. I would start to draw and I'd look at it and think it's already starting to look rubbish. I would just sit there having all these thoughts going through my head. You're not good enough. You shouldn't be doing this, etc. But I want to do it with all my heart. I know that practice makes perfect, but it's getting over the anxiety and worry which makes it hard. I hated watching people in the lecture that could draw beautifully, but when I asked them what their history was, they would say, oh, I did graphics or art foundation and took a year out with the company, where there's me who did drama, law and Welsh A-level. I've got 3 internships after university, as I'd won an award during my time there, but even that still hasn't given me the confidence in drawing. If I was confident and was able to draw comfortably, then my life would be a million times better. All the weight off my shoulder would be lifted, and I would love life. I'm looking for personal tutors in terms of drawing at the moment. I just wanted to see what you guys thought, and any suggestions?
So, first of all, big thank you and shout out to Connor for sharing his story with us. And I feel really happy and grateful to have it on the show. And also respect you, Connor, if you're hopefully listening, because you've been very heart on sleeve and honest there with your story. And I think what you've shared is very common and very indicative of a lot of creatives out there. And I think a lot of the listenership of this show are going to be able to resonate. I know all 4 of us hosts have been in a similar boat. I think there's a lot of different parts here, to be honest. So I'm trying to kind of remember everything that you've just said, Ian, to be honest. But I almost want to dissect it because, as I say, we've all been there, so you're definitely not alone. But I would say part 1 is you are clearly gravitating towards, this is what you love to do. So in your email you've said, you know, any free time, I'm drawing, I'm doing logos, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So that's a pretty clear indication that you're not shying away from this, or whenever you do it, you feel miserable. This seems to be your true passion, and that's fantastic because most people don't even get that far ever. Sometimes, I know people in their 50s who never figure this stuff out. So that's a huge step up. So the issue really seems to come from confidence and anxiety, and again, that's something that's very commonplace. It's something all four of us have talked about at length before, and I'm not sure it's gonna necessarily go away. And I don't want to open negative here, but you said in your email, Connor, that, you know, if only you could improve your drawing, then all of that stuff would go away. And I don't think that's the case because, you know, it's not like you're useless. I guarantee you probably have some decent skills. You've just said you've got an award, you've got internships lined up.
I've seen his work. It's good.
You've seen it? Awesome.
Yeah. It's really
no. I probably should have gone and looked before this episode. That's terrible preparation. I will look after Connor, I promise. But I just think you clearly have the skills, and that is being validated by the fact you're getting these awards and these internships, and you're starting to make good progress at the early stage in your life. So you're kind of already getting the validation there. And I'm not sure that just improving your technical drawing abilities a bit is suddenly going to lift any kind of worry. So it's more a case of like, how do you channel that worry or just work to overcome it internally rather than waiting for some external thing to change and suddenly it makes everything okay? Because I'm just not sure that's going to happen.
I think if you were to ask all designers, especially the ones that seem, I suppose, most well-known ones, who've made a name for them, I think they would all say that they at some point will struggle with self-doubt, however successful they've been. You know, I know that for me, even having a massive audience, it's still, it doesn't go away. You know, it's just how you deal with it, how you respond to it.
It's all relative, right? So when you're starting out, in your case, Ian, it might have been like, oh, I felt anxious until I hit my first 100 followers. And now you feel anxious if you're like, oh, I only got 1,000 likes, not the usual 1,500. Like, it's always going to be relative.
It is always relative.
It comes down to what we discussed in a previous one about the comparison of you comparing yourself to other people is which
sounds like he's kind of does a lot. You know,
he's saying like, I've got the great artist drawing naturally next to me, right?
Wait, I mean, it's hard not to, obviously, especially when you're sitting right next to somebody. I mean, it's different when it's like, you know, on the internet. So that I can sympathize. But I just wanted to quickly address the last portion of his letter in terms of his regret, or not his regret, his you know, he wishes things would, if he could just do this, if he could just do that, he feels his life would be better. I think, Connor, you need to try and think of it as, this sounds very woo-woo and all that, but see it as part of your journey, and try not to regret where you are, because one day you're going to look back and you're going to be grateful that you kind of had certain struggles, because I think they form the artist that you're constantly evolving to be. So don't see it as a bad thing. See it as it's part of your journey. It's part of your your creation as a person. So, there's lots of things that I look back in my career and I wish I should have done this and I wish I, did that. But if I didn't do the things that I did do, I wouldn't be where I am today. So don't knock your journey or where you are, because it could be very important in your process. So, that might help.
Yeah, it's formative. There's no overnight success.
No.
This is just one of the steps to get there.
Yeah. I think it's really important to pound home this point that I don't think happiness comes from getting this stuff done. When you reach that point, I think we're all surprised how empty these things are. As soon as you said that, I thought about, I'm not a great drawer. I actually am very similar to Connor. Even though I went to art school, I didn't draw for years, and I draw privately. But I've had successes in other things. For instance, gaining followers, growing a business, doing these things that I thought, well, when I get that, I'll finally be happy. And then you get them, And the happiness lasts about as long as buying a new toy or something like that. And you find out just how empty it is. At the end of the day, it's really just drawing. It's just drawing or making letters or doing illustrations or doing logos. And I've seen people who are fantastic at doing this. I mean, the best. You know, you go to conferences and you meet some of the best people in the world at this. And some of them, you start to realize as you know them, their entire life revolves around drawing or making logos. And there's been times when I've seen these people and I've actually started to feel sad because I'm like, this is it. This is pretty much it. I know it sounds heavy, but it's true. This is pretty much their life. They live and breathe making this stuff, and so much of their life is given up. You only have so much space. So I guess I would just say, just don't bet everything on the fact that if you finally reach that goal, you're going to be happy, because I think it's unlikely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would also say it's fine to dedicate most of your life to this thing if that is what truly makes you happy. But it's the doing it which make you happy, not the end goal. Like Lisa says, it's the journey, but you should actually find enjoyment in the journey.
Yes.
And it's very common for people not to do that. I've done exactly the same thing as you, Dustin. Like, feel like I've lived most of my life. I'll be happy as soon as I get there. And you know what? Like right now, I'm incredibly happy doing what I'm doing because I love coming into work every day and I love the work I do, and that's the fulfilling thing. It's like you can still have the goals and the milestones, and wouldn't it be nice once we've mastered this next thing? But if you're enjoying your day to day, that's the best possible thing. I think like that should be the focus.
Yeah, and I think maybe Connor is placing too much importance on the end result of his art, instead of actually, and again, enjoying the fact that he's creating art, and maybe it would be healthier for him to look at it more as a privilege. The fact that he can sit down, he's got a pen in his hand or pencil, whatever, and he's now going to sort of start creating and enjoy that process rather than aim for this has to be the best piece I've ever done, or it has to be better than Joe's sitting next to me, etc. It's more about the fact that it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to use our hands and our minds and, you know, get the two working together, and rather enjoy it from that point of view, and see the miracle of that rather than it's got to be the, you know, the best, because that's not it.
I've been drawing lately. I've been inspired by Ian, and I've done some letter stuff, which is rubbish, to use your term, compared to what any of you do. But I found, you're right, I hadn't done that kind of thing in so long that you just go into that flow state. And I noticed that I don't go into that much, and I realized how much I was missing. And I was like, man, like really the big payoff is being in a space where I'm really, everything kind of fades to the back for a minute. And when I'm done, it's not that great, but it felt so good to be focused and to be doing it. It felt like your brain was growing,
And
it does.
And because this enjoyment is also relative, you will get the people who are at the top of their game and they're miserable and they're racked with self-doubt, even at their level, and they're picking apart their amazing work. And then you get someone like Dustin who's maybe starting out in a new medium, and you know, you're not a professional or anything, but you're loving the process, and that's where it should be. And Lisa, I look at you with your work. It's like, yes, you have the success and the popular products and the community rallying around you. You've got all that stuff, which is, I think, what people look up to. But what I respect the most in what you do and kind of see your true enjoyment come from is where you're there, like dreaming up these characters, like when you talk about that stuff, and it's like, and then I just imagine that, and my imagination runs wild, and then I don't leave the room for 24 hours because I just can't stop drawing. Like that's where your true kind of joy comes from, and then the other stuff, all the accolades and stuff, are a happy side effect of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it sounds like Connor's too focused looking ahead to you know, am I going to get the dream job, am I going to be better than so and so?
Precisely.
And you should really just try and find that joy in the moment in what you're doing.
I have a friend named Shauna Lynn Panchezin who's a big hand letterer and quite good at it, and every time I see her at conferences, she's always doing lettering, and she's doing it just because she likes it. It's like she's carrying around a book with her, just lettering because she likes it. She gets all sorts of jobs, but as I watch her, I'm like, You got this right. When you can put on Instagram a picture and say, I'm doing lettering this evening while I play Harry Potter in the background, and you're totally happy. And I'm like, what a great way to spend your life to enjoy it that much. So I think that's neat about all of you guys.
I don't like the whole tortured artist thing, to be honest. And I know it's common and it's a trap all four of us fall into. But I've had musician friends and they'd be really talented and they'd be like, oh, like I'm so precious about this track. You couldn't possibly hear it. It's so rubbish. Like, and then they'd play it and almost be talking it down the whole time. And then I've got other people who are less talented musicians, but they're like, oh, you got to hear this. I had a blast. Like, I had so much fun making this with my friends. Like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's like, it's such a happy song. Like, what do you think? And it's like, which person is more fun to be around?
Right.
True.
And who's happier? I mean, you can be oftentimes being the best at something or one of the top 1% comes with a lot of being miserable. This is getting kind of philosophical, I feel like, but I feel like it's really important, right? Because
Yeah, it is important.
If your goal is wrong, then maybe you need to like readjust or reassess how you look at it. It sounds like what you're kind of saying, Tom.
Yeah, for sure. Ian, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts.
When this email first hit your inbox, what did you think?
I looking at the anxiety or worry that he has. I was just thinking that how some way he could actually put that into his work. You know, using the stuff that he struggles with, but using it more for a positive than a negative. So if he starts to feel that, maybe then explore. I think it's embracing the ugly that you think is ugly. Because the thing is, what something is good or not is based on personal opinion. So, you know, the quality of a bit of art can be weighed up. Someone can think it's brilliant. Someone can think it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And so it's embracing what you think is ugly because other people don't think it's ugly. And that also connecting with your audience, you know, because the reason why you do this is for other people to, well, you know, whether it's buying products or whatever that may be, it's, you know, on a shelf, it's people saying, "Oh, that looks nice," isn't it? You're putting it out there, you know, as an art piece, and you want people to like it. And so, yeah, it's that sort of embracing that.
I just thought of an example when you mentioned that because there was a girl, she went viral on Facebook, and I think she had various mental health issues, and she basically captured them in art. So she was like, "Here's what my schizophrenia feels like and looks like in my head." Actually, no, there's two. So there was one who she was like, "That's my schizophrenia. That's my depression. Here's what they look like." There was another one who was schizophrenic, and she drew like the hallucinations that she was seeing, and she was like, "This is how terrifying my world is, but I'm going to express that through, you know, my creativity, which is what I love in life."
Were they amazing illustrations or were they just uniquely hers?
Yeah, they were really well done actually, and it looked like something out of a kind of animated horror movie or whatever. But obviously, I'm not saying Connor has anything quite that extreme. But I do think you're onto something there, Ian, where it's like, well, take the work and the creativity that you love to do and use that as a tool of expression beyond just, you know, it's amazing that he had the courage to email us, but I would love to see that put into his work. And it's like, here's how these feelings look like. And I guarantee you'll at least get a lot of people beyond just the four of us being like, yep, me too. And that's going to help you to realize you're not alone.
Yeah. And that's what make, you know, going back to, you know, building an audience and of people following your work or clients following your work, it's the stuff that makes you stand out is being you. Because, you know, if I did stuff that was exactly the same as someone else, I wouldn't get any work. I wouldn't, you know, build my audience because they were like, oh, it's just the same as someone else's. You know, why he's already doing this? Why is he doing exactly the same? It's not different. So I think embracing the things that make you, which are anxiety and worry, you know, you have to bring into us. You have to portray the things that you find easy and the things you find hard as well. because that's who you are, and honesty and putting yourself out there is what people resonate with. I expect, there's millions of people on the planet, and I expect there's a massive portion who feel exactly the same, and they're going to appreciate it and go, actually, that piece of art you've done there really represents how I feel. Or a client may come along and say, actually, that's a really good piece. That will represent what we want to try and do. And it will help you to stand out in a good way towards people who like your work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You wanted to say something, Justin?
I was just curious about your guys' question about, or your guys'. Just realized you guys always think I say I want your take on this, but I do want your take on it.
No.
So whatever.
I was just curious. I was curious, you guys.
I'm curious. I am legitimately curious. So
you're the most curious guy I know.
I see people that spend so much time, and this includes me on certain things. They spend so much time trying to be good at a certain thing, and they don't get good. Some people I've known for years, it seems like they keep pounding away trying to get good at this, and they get nowhere. They're no good. I don't like the stuff. Nobody likes the stuff. Nobody is looking at it. My question is, I'm a believer that things like genius are an anomaly. It's not common. You can't say, oh, some people are just geniuses at this and they're great. I think that most people tend to just happen to have figured out something that helped them to exhilarate and get better. Why do some people suck for so long and never get there? And why do other people, like Ian, do it for 6 months and all of a sudden have 1 billion followers and look fantastic? What is the difference?
I think the big difference is the intention behind it. I think because with the intention, depending on whichever way you are you doing it for monetary gain? Are you doing it for pressure because society says everybody's got to now be able to write beautifully, calligraphy? I don't know, or are you doing it for fun? And I think if you take the pressure out of the situation, I think you propel forward faster. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
and I also think it's the kind of work or practice that you're doing. And I really believe that differs between the people that get nowhere and the people that get somewhere. For example, with myself, I play guitar very averagely at best. And I probably played for about 10 years now. And I probably haven't got any better for about the last 6 of those. And it's because I'll pick up my guitar and I'll play the same 4 songs which I like playing. And I'll never do any kind of focused practice. And so you could say, oh, I played for 10 years. I should be way better. But then you look at the people who set aside an hour or two every day and they learn new songs and they learn new genres and they go to a teacher and learn the right technique and they do focused practice and practice their arpeggios and their scales and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same with drawing. It's like if you just stick in your comfort zone and kind of potter around, you're probably not going to get any better. But if you're going outside your comfort zone, you're trying new things, you're doing, we've talked, Lisa, you do a lot of courses, video courses and stuff like that. There's active learning and there's just ticking along doing the same thing you always have. And I can't believe that you would do active learning for years and years and years and wouldn't get better.
I also think so. I think if you're doing it, if you're going out of your comfort zone to explore and have fun, so to speak, I think you learn better and faster. But if you're going out of your comfort zone because you're doing it out of panic, in other words, you want to keep up with that person or keep up with, this product or whatever, then you don't learn because you're in an anxiety state. You're panicking about getting better and you're not actually focusing on, the skill, I think.
It's going back to looking back at those feelings when you were just learning and trying to capture that again. One of the best things I've ever done was have a Skillshare subscription because, and you can look back on that site actually where one of my first projects, which was a hand lettering thing, and I've learned so much on there because I'd learn about not just hand lettering and typography, but also about illustration as well. I don't feel I'm particularly good at illustration. It's not, I'm okay, but learning how to do illustration digitally and analog, making patterns and stuff, whatever it may be, because it was in the process of doing just learning all these little bits. Some I've never used, but there's been 1 or 2 which have just suddenly projected part of my business or my career or how I use certain tools, and it's projected far beyond what I could have thought about. If I thought about, okay, I'm going to do this because I thought about it, it was just through learning, just trying and learning, and then you find, and you can't do that by just thinking about it. Oh, I'm going to do this today. You just do it, and you do it. Oh, I'm really good at this. I'll do it. Oh, I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
A lot of the things I'm not very good at, and I try it, and I'm not very good at it, so I just move on. And I find something, try it, might not be.
So it's organic, not forced.
Yeah, but it's that constant momentum of learning and trying and learning and trying. Repeating.
Did you
I like
feel
that.
good as you were doing it? Did you think you were good when you were doing it? Sorry, Tom.
I think what the good thing about doing it on the Skillshare model, where you have there's always something to do at the end of it, and you post your progress. I thought that was really good, as it helped you to put it into practice what you've learned, so that it wouldn't just, because the problem is, you pick up a guitar, you watch a video about the chords. If you don't do anything, you're not going to get better at guitar. You have to actually play the notes. The same with lettering. You have to letter, you have to practice, otherwise you won't get any better with it. So having an actual project, actually something that you can actually put this new learned skill into, whether it was just writing your name or whatever it may be, you can then see whether actually I enjoyed that, I was good at it. You can roughly gauge with looking at your own work whether it's something well, it's something you can sort of, if there's just a little bit of something in it, you can see that. And then whether it's the combination of a few things, not just one, oh, I'm good at that, because I'm good at graphic design, but I don't enjoy it as much as I do just focusing straight on lettering and calligraphy and typography. It's the difference between enjoying and what you're good at. There's this sweet spot, like those two, what are the circles that you overlap?
Yeah.
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. There's a sweet spot between what you like doing and what you're good at, that produces this sort of passionate thing that
explosion.
Really, yeah.
But again, it's all about the intention. Your intention was to learn, not to produce this masterpiece, and I think that's important.
Yeah, Connor needs to find the joy in what he's doing. I truly believe that, because I think you just end up miserable otherwise if you're focused on the other stuff. Although I did want to ask you guys this. I'm in two minds, because part of me thinks, well, everything you've described just makes you sound like a creative person. So all the anxiety and stuff, that's something we all relate to, and we all go, yep. It's like I struggle to think of any creatives who are like bombastically confident all the time about themselves and their work. So pretty much when I first heard the email, I wasn't like, oh, what a freak. I was like, yeah, that pretty much sounds like the rest of us. And maybe we are the freaks of society, and that's why we ended up being creatives, because there's some kind of common trait. But I think it's very normal. So half of me wants to be like, well, just accept it, and that's who you are, and you've probably fallen into the right thing. And the other half of me wants to be like, well, yes, come to terms with it a bit, but also kind of fight it and try and improve it, because you don't want to be miserable and anxious for your whole life.
I still think
like, which way should you go, really? You shouldn't deny your anxiety and be like, you know what, because then you'll never be happy if you're aspiring to have no anxiety, be 100% confident, because that probably won't happen. But at the same time, I don't want to be like, well, I guess it's because I'm creative, so I'm just going to live with this forever. I
think I'm with you on that, Tom, though, because I worry that people, like you're saying, romanticize being anxious or wanting to beat yourself up because you're not good. And it sounds like you, Tom, are kind of more like how I wish I was, where you're like, the priority is to be joyful in what you're doing. So where is the balance? Because it sounds like in general, you're pretty happy with, you get in a flow state and you're pretty happy with the work you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think all four of us have managed to kind of find the joy in what we do, yet, when we started these, before we even turned it into a podcast, and it was just cool. It was like a group therapy session, and we were super anxious. In fact, I would say that this has been one of the best things I've ever done for my hang-ups about my work and any anxiety attached with that. So Connor and anyone listening, I would actually say go do like a mastermind and jump on a call or grab a coffee or whatever with like 3 or 4 of your peers and just
It
talk it
helps to
out,
talk about
because
it.
it's a huge weight off. Like Dustin, I think you were the worst culprit, not to call you out, but on the early
No.
calls you were like really really stressed, and to anyone
Sure, I
looking at
was.
what you're doing, they're probably just looking up to you, and you're one of the people they're jealous of or like aspiring to be. And it's like you didn't sound like over the moon happy on the early calls. You were like, oh, it's such a relief to get this stuff off my chest.
I think you start to feel like you're uniquely in a position of anxiety or worry about things, and when you hear other people say, "Oh, I have that same thing," and it's people that like you guys, that I look up to, you say, "Oh, well, what a relief."
That's it. It helps. Definitely.
I mean, what was it? Our second episode was self-doubt. So Connor, I do hope you've listened to that one, because if not, please go have a listen. We rant for like an hour on this stuff and how we all go through it, and like really really go in depth there. But I think there's more going on here than just self-doubt. I mean, I'm trying to work out if this is like crippling self-doubt or if it's an excuse, and I don't want to sound harsh there at all, but I think we've all been in a position where we kind of throw up these barriers that aren't there because we're not where we want to be. So we're like, oh, well, it must be because I'm anxious, or it must be because I'm not the best drawer yet, or whatever it might be. And another theme that's run through the show, which is easier said than done, I get that, but a main theme of the show has always been to do, like just go and take action and do stuff. Don't worry about the end game. Don't worry about perfection. Just go and take the next step and keep moving. And again, I realize it's not always that easy.
I recently, actually, I've been just really, I've been quite stressed because I had a talk last week I had to do, and I had to talk this week I had to do, and writing is really one of my, is kryptonite the right word? It was that Superman's.
Yeah.
I noticed you wrote something the other day though and posted it.
What did I write? I can't remember.
On Medium. I just saw an article of yours on Medium, and I was like, oh, he's writing, but he hates writing. And I was like, he must be just getting into a habit of doing it.
I was just saying there's only one on there. That's just my writing from my talk. So
okay.
Did you record it on a dictaphone and then throw it at someone to type up for you?
my wife is very good at deciphering my thoughts from what I say.
It's like the Enigma machine.
Yeah, she's a speech therapist, so she's good at communication.
Oh wow! So quite literally, she is.
Yeah. What was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying there. The stress of that. It was my first talk, and just trying to communicate and through words rather than, which is weird because I write for a living but in a different way.
The irony.
I like that.
I only write a few words at a time. That's right. But when I was feeling the stress of that had really blocked a blocked drain of my creativity. And so I was finding it really hard to just come up with ideas where I'd naturally just think of something just like that and just do and post it. And I was like, there's been a couple of days I just haven't posted anything because I'm trying to think and it's just nothing coming. It's like, it's just an empty, like Western ghost town and like, and I was just like, and it was really frustrating. And I could see how it's a mental mind game with this.
It is.
As much as it is the ideas that you put in. Like, I feel that anyone can do calligraphy. Obviously, I have to put a caveat on that if you've got pain in your hands and stuff like that, and you can't write and stuff like that. But majority of people can learn it, as I keep showing, and I showed in my talk that this is what I was 4 years ago was rubbish, as you can see. That anyone can do it. It's just putting in the practice.
I think
that's true.
I think too, there's this pressure. We see certain things and we want to do it, or we feel like we should. I remember when I first started design, I felt like, well, I think I'm supposed to know how to code HTML and CSS and PHP and MySQL, but I think I'm also supposed to know all about grids. I also think I'm supposed to know exactly how to make fonts. I think I'm supposed to know all about layouts and InDesign, and I became overwhelmed because I felt like I needed to be so great at everything. And because of it, I was no good at anything. And I found that I finally hit a stride when I really liked old retro stuff. I just really thought it was neat, but I also felt like, well, it's kind of trendy and it's not a smart business decision. It's not long-term thinking. But when I finally let go and just said, forget it, I'm just going to do what feels good to do. I like doing this, so I'm just going to do this. And then it became easy. I felt like I'm not trying to meet anyone's criterias. I guess, like you're saying, there's this self-imposed barriers we put on ourselves, and it's just like, if you like doing something, do that. Forget about if it's cool right now or if that's what everyone else is doing.
I'd be really intrigued to know what Connor's actually into. Like, it's drawing, his favorite thing in the world, but he's got anxiety. He's not as good, he believes, as the people sat next to him. Or is he trying to force drawing because he thinks he should be good, or it's part of his degree, but actually there's something else? And I think what you just said, Dustin, and Ian, what you said earlier about kind of pivoting quite a lot, I feel like we're circling in on something here. So Connor, I think you should be like the salmon, to use a metaphor. You should be like the salmon, swimming upstream and just kind of finding the right channels to jump into and go with the flow. So if right now you're gravitating towards something, so it's like, okay, I find this the most fun or the least stressful or whatever, it's like, okay, go do that. Or if it's like, well, I got my award for doing that, or my internship, they loved this about me, it's like, well, go and pursue that for a bit and then see what the next thing is and the next thing, and get better at that. And maybe you do that for years because you love it. And then maybe one day you wake up and you're kind of bored of that. So you're like, oh, next shiny object over here, I'm going to go and try this because that takes my fancy. And just by naturally following the flow of things, as opposed to like, I'm going to jump into this rigid path that isn't even my path, it's someone else's, and I'm going to try and excel in 20 different areas along this linear path, which isn't even my life plan. Like that stresses me out, thinking like that. Whereas if it's this kind of fluid, like, yeah, I'm just going to go try that because it's fun.
I think that's that element of fun, putting into your week, however much time you have to spare, just playing around. Because like, I've learned, like, some of my products that come around from just playing in Illustrator. Oh, what happens if I just try this? I have no clue how to use actions. I'll try that, and it worked. And it comes from just playing, looking at Pinterest, saying, oh, look at that, that looks really cool. Let's try and do that myself. Let's find a tutorial, try and do it. I think we mentioned this when we were like saying about like YouTube and looking at things. You say, oh, you're just questioning things, make it. Right. Actually, Chris Spooner mentioned it about he would learn how to do something and turn it into a tutorial. And that was his process. And I think everyone can do that process, just learn it. Someone else wants to learn it.
Yeah, but I think he was kind of following his path and his flow of, he gravitates towards teaching. He's not trying to force that. You don't
necessarily have to teach anyone. You can just play. I think it's just that freedom not to have anything, like the freedom just to play and not have anything to finish with. Sometimes we think, I gotta have a finished project at the end of whatever we're doing. Sometimes it's good to play. I used to, like a year ago, 2 years ago, I used to spend like days and days just playing, and nothing. I had nothing to show for it. But then sometimes I would, and then I'd come up with some sort of product or some sort of piece. But it's just letting yourself do it, knowing that you don't have to have anything to finish with. Not being guilty of having.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was just thinking of an analogy. I was just thinking of, because I took my son a few months ago to a model railway exhibition, and people that go to them really love what they do. And I was just thinking, there's people there exhibiting their like model trains and the whole thing that goes around them, like the bridges and the stations that they made and all the modelling that goes into it. And never did I feel that there was people either one-upping each other or comparing themselves to each other. They were just really passionate about the trains and the models and the people being there. And, there was relaxing. And there was no hierarchy. The kids were loving it. The old adults were loving it. And there was just this great sense of people just passionate about trains. And I was just thinking how that would be so nice if we could just all be passionate about art without the competition, without the comparison, without the I need to do better than this person or my stuff's rubbish. They were accepting, there was, I would look at it and there were some that were like amazing and some that weren't as amazing, but I could appreciate them all, and people there, who built them could appreciate it all.
And the irony of all that is probably if that environment was, if we curated that environment for ourselves, we'd probably just naturally get good at the thing that we're supposed to be good at.
Mm-hmm. I also believe, on a wider sense, that true confidence and happiness comes from learning who you really are and then going all in on that and being unabashedly yourself. And so that fits into creativity, right? So we sit on these calls and it's like, whilst I would love to be as good as you guys at what you do, I don't sit here like anxious or jealous or feeling crap about my own work because I'm like, oh, I can't draw like Lisa, I can't do retro work like Dustin, like I wish I could do calligraphy like Ian. Like I don't beat myself up about that because I'm like, well, I feel like I'm good at what I do and I love it. And I know you guys feel the same. And it's the equivalent of like I know people in real life who are the biggest nerds and they're unabashedly embracing that. They're like, you know what? I'm into these kind of like bands and I love Dungeons and Dragons and all this stuff. And I'm so happy being me and playing that. And how much more attractive is that? And how much happier are they because of that? And it's the equivalent of if one of those people was at school and their life goal was to be exactly like the cool kid, even though that's not who they are, they're never going to be happy. So definitely. It's like, why not just go all in on you instead of trying to be Sally next to you?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with finding your style, as we've discussed before, because once you find your style and you feel totally comfortable and into it, a lot of the anxiety should go away because it's just something that comes naturally to you and you don't even have to question things anymore. It just flows out of you. So I don't know if Connor feels that he still needs to find his style a bit, because if he does, then
it sounds like it.
Yeah, I would say just from a practical point of view, when he sits down to draw, it's very important, your mindset, when you sit down to draw. I mean, it's true for me. If I'm in a crappy mood and I'm not feeling great about, I don't know, work in general, and I try and draw, it's just not going to happen. So I think Connor needs to really almost create like a shrine in a way, I don't know, or a process that he goes through before he draws. Either it's, I don't know, meditate if he's into that, or get into a headspace that is a good space. And
it's almost like even though you have to care, you have to force yourself to pretend like
it's true, you do.
Don't care.
It's almost like you have to fake it till you make it kind of thing. Because I have to do that for me. I can't always just feel creative. I have to kind of almost generate that feeling. So it's important for you to find what that is.
What's interesting too, when you think about all of us, and I think most people that excel at whatever they're doing, is it's easy to look and say, oh, well, Lisa's so great at doing these illustrations, and you look at that and you kind of get absorbed into your world of it and think, wow, how amazing it would be to be good at that. But you forget about all the other burners that had to be turned off. That are things that you could have had cooking, but unfortunately you could only cook the one stew, and it was the bunny stew, right? You had to turn off the lettering stew. You had to turn off the web design stew. You had to turn off all these other things. So
she hasn't seen her husband in 9 days.
Well,
exactly.
And very likely for some people, right? So it really is. I challenge you. I can't think of a single example that it breaks this rule. If you go look at anyone whose work you truly admire, you'll find there's a very small sliver of what they're amazing at because they've relentlessly focused on this. And when anything goes off to the sides of that, it all, I would guess, would fall apart. If you ask Ian to draw bunnies, I think it would be rubbish. Or me.
No, it's so true. Like, I've gone so all in on what I love doing from a very young age. I have the general knowledge of a 5-year-old. like because I
We'd make
I
a
literally-
rubbish quiz team.
I do every single time. I've been in a quiz with like my young siblings, and they've done better than me. And every time I enter, I get the worst score in the whole room, and it's really embarrassing. I know I'm not a dumb guy, but I've pretty much eschewed any other like knowledge or anything in life because I've gone so focused on this. It's like this and my family and friends,
Yeah.
and I haven't got time for anything else.
Do you know what really helped me to find out what I loved doing was not feeling guilty that I didn't enjoy all of design, that there was actually stuff that I hated doing. And it was letting yourself go and saying, oh, actually, I don't like doing business cards. I don't like doing brochures. I don't, and it was really freeing for me because I was like, I felt like I had to like everything about graphic design in general, and just giving yourself permission to write a list of stuff you really don't like about graphic design. Hopefully there's one thing on that list that you don't hate, and then you can pursue that. But it's real good clarity of what you want to do. It might be the case there's more than one or two that you really like doing, but for me, I had to list down all these things. Okay, I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing that. And letting it go and being okay with that and not taking on any work that required that, even if the money's good, even if, you know, what it does is just that it just draws you back down again. If you think, oh, I just need the money, you're going to have to take back on another one of those. And it's just, you know, it's not what I enjoy. We're very blessed positions that we can choose. We can do that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Connor can as well. He's at that great age where you're studying, and I'm guessing, you know, he might not have a family to support and as many responsibilities as he might do in 10 or 20 years' time.
Yeah.
So he's at that phase of learning and soaking it up and being able to pivot and try some internships and like that. That's a pretty fun phase, or it should be.
But also, age and having children doesn't mean you can't do anything like that. Because I
It actually
changed
helped me.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Because if it wasn't for the fact that my son was born and my wife chose to watch Downton Abbey while she was breastfeeding.
Oh yeah, you said.
I wouldn't have sat down and learnt calligraphy in that time that I then had free because I didn't. If I'd liked Downton Abbey, we wouldn't be on this conversation because I wouldn't be here. But
Ian and I talked for like an hour after one of the episodes a couple weeks back, and at one point we were laughing at this cartoon together. It was from The Far Side. And it was all these sheep hanging out in a field, and this one sheep stands up and he says, "Wait, guys, we don't all have to be just sheep." And I wish I had learned. It's such a good lesson because I wish I had learned that lesson earlier, because you spend so much time feeling like I must be good at this thing that I just deep inside don't want to be good at. And the sooner you can say it's totally okay that I don't want to be good at this, it's totally okay that I have zero interest in this, the more you can focus on what you really want to do and get great at it.
Yeah, Ian, also, you reminded me now of something that I wanted to mention earlier on, was the fact that perhaps, I'm not saying that is the case with Connor, but he might be trying to draw something that is a bit beyond his capability right now. For example, I know when I sort of first started, taking illustration more seriously, I mean, I had all these ideas in my head, but my skills didn't match the ideas, if that makes sense. So I as much as I wanted to draw an entire kitchen filled with mice baking a cake, I just wasn't I wasn't capable.
Yeah, as you do. As you do.
Yeah.
As you do, exactly.
Can that be the cover of this episode?
Yes, I love it.
I'll try.
I would love just to. Sorry, Lisa, go on.
No, I was just going to say, just to round off. So, if it is beyond your skill, you're always going to have anxiety. You're never going to get it right,
So what did you draw?
I love that.
What was the simpler thing?
Well,
A circle.
Yeah, the point is you just have to start. You have to start small. Then you can't go for the big
Was it
time.
one mouse?
Yeah, it
in
was
a pantry.
literally. Was literally just one mouse. So yeah.
There you go. Connor, find your one mouse.
Yeah.
Would be the advice. Okay, so hopefully we've covered quite a lot, not just for Connor, but for, I think there are a lot of people out there going through this. So to wrap things up, have we each got like a single sentence which we can give to Connor and anyone listening to kind of sum up our thoughts and the main thing we think he should focus on?
Yeah.
And I'll go last, so you guys
Okay.
are probably going to steal what I'm going to say.
I'll go with embrace that anxiety and worry and use it within your work. If you can picture it and if you can use it to apply.
Cool.
Nice one. Yeah.
Love it. Lisa?
I would go with create your happy place mentally and physically before you sit down to create. It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
like
go
it.
with. Oh, sorry. Good.
No, go.
Oh, I was gonna say, and I would go with that thing you feel like is so important and critical that you know how to do. You can throw away. Like, let it go.
Mm.
Cool. And I would go with just find your flow and don't be afraid to pivot. Just whatever kind of draws you towards it, go down there and don't worry about the set path which you feel you should be following. Just naturally follow it and see where it takes you. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Hopefully you found some points where you might relate to Connor's situation, but you now come out of that feeling a bit more confident and inspired to go and create and just enjoy it again. As always, you can find full show notes for this episode over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. If today's episode helped or inspired you in any way, it would mean so much to all four of us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for you fellow creatives to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you right here this time next week for The Honest Designers Show.